Hello, this is Avrilcadabra, and this is the M8TRIX, my little episodic show about M8TRIX. And today we're going to go over delay command, going to look at the new keyboard, and then I'll go over one of my presets that I think is interesting. So this is version 2.9 of the firmware. We now have this piano here, which will display notes and chords, and it is very handy. One of them things you didn't know you needed until you have it, but that should make the M8 a lot more accessible. Even though that's a hi-hat, we can see it's playing a C on the little keyboard. So that's super cool. But we're going to look at delay. I've got my green theme on today for the M8TRIX. Okay, so let's look at delay. So delay's had a few reworks over the period, at least that I've had the M8. So what does delay do? Delay just moves ticks. So if we do this, it'll play ever so slightly later. It's hard to comprehend with that example. And if you move to 6, it'll be playing on step 5. So if you go 2 steps, it'll now play when the playhead hits 6. Okay, so that's straightforward enough. We have 2 hi-hats. We can make this one play closer to the next one. And that's as close as it can be at 5. At 6 it will overwrite. So it's just 1. I could do that example by making that an open hi-hat. But it will never play the open hi-hat. If we go back 1, it will play the open hi-hat. So it's kind of like a flam. Hits the hi-hat and then the open hi-hat. So if we go to 7, this hi-hat's going to land 1 tick after the open hi-hat, so it will cut it off. So you'll just hear the open hi-hat start, but it will finish with the closed one. So you can do little flams like that. So reasons you might want to do that is just if you want to get a lazy drum beat, you just want to move things a bit off the grid. Or if you don't have space to put a note here or a note here, etc., you can organize it with delay and fit it where you can, and then delay it till it comes down to where you want it to play, if that spot's already taken. For example, that's a lot of steps. See if we can figure this out. Should be 4 steps, right? Yeah, so that hi-hat's now playing there. So, what else can you do with delay? Because delay overwrites, we can use chance. If we do a 50% chance that this delay and this note will trigger, and if they do trigger, it will trigger 6 ticks late, which will land here, which will overwrite this open hi-hat. So this gives us a 50% chance of having a closed hi-hat or an open hi-hat. So that's pretty amazing. And you can keep doing this. So yeah, it will only play one note, but there will be a chance that it'll be either of them. So I think that's a really handy trick. So that is some cool things you can do with delay. Next thing I was going to show was the mini keyboard, which we just seen in action. So by changing these mod semitones, we're changing the operator pitch, which makes chords in the FM synth, but it's just really easy to see what chords you're doing now on the little keyboard. This preset is called Rave Chord, and it's in my preset pack, which I'll link below, which is free. This one is macro synth and wave paraphonic oscillator. See a little keyboard going crazy. Got a bunch of pitch modulation and color modulation, which is changing the chords on this one. That's really cool. The mini piano still shows you what's going on. The last thing I wanted to show was this preset called Box of Aliens, which is in my modern preset pack, which again it will be in the description below. If we look in the table, it increases the tempo. If you look at the tempo at the top right now, it's 900. So that's not that useful or easy to understand. So we're going to put the tempo to 0. And now when it plays, it's going to start, the first thing it's going to do is increase the tempo. And each time it goes around, it will increase the tempo more. But when the note plays again here, it will reset to 0. So if you watch the tempo in the top right, well, to be precise, it'll play oscillator 15 the first time it plays, and the second time it will do a random version. So 50% of the time it'll be playing 15, which is vosim. So if you look at this envelope and LFO screen, we can see that it's drunk LFO on the timbre, using an envelope to sweep through the colour, and we have a drunk pitch, so that's the only modulation it's getting. blocks of aliens. I think that's a fun preset to play around with. Shows what you can do with a small amount of commands in the tables. This table hop just goes back to 0, 0. So that is this week's episode of the Matrix. Next week I'll do something else. If there's a particular thing you want me to go over or show, just ask below. And I'll see you in next week's episode.